we can shift perception and have young children pick fresh fruits for the first time from a tree and see what it does and how it feels. And it's the seeds they have planted. It's a fruit that was literally grown for them. My goodness, there's so much love and beauty in this vision.
Hello, everybody. Jim Gale here with Matthew Britt, and we are so excited to take you through another episode of the Jim Gale Show. Matthew, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks, Jim. It's so great to see you again. I hope you're enjoying your travels up in Minnesota.
Oh my gosh, incredible travels. I just had the great opportunity to go to 4 different growers' places, food forests, and people that are growing and preserving food, and take some videos. And it's just amazing what can be done when people realize what's possible. It's the way of the future, my friend.
Yeah. And what's awesome is you're in a northern climate right now. I live in Canada. You're up in Minnesota. And what do you see and being produced up there?
So I was up at Chad Johnson's house, and he has created, it's the Minnesota version of the Garden of Eden. You walk out, everything around is functional, edible, delicious. He's got 300 different species of edible medicinal plants growing on his property.
Wow. That is very substantial.
It's nuts. In Minnesota, right? And I get a lot of people when I'm down doing my videos in Florida, and they're like, oh yeah, but I'm in Minnesota, or I'm in Arizona, or I'm in Alaska, or wherever. So their implication is, I can't do that here. Well, you can't do that with bananas, but you can do that with hundreds and thousands of other plants.
Yes. And, me being in Canada, same thing. I get that question all the time as I'm talking about food forests and what we do here. And it's probably the most common thing is, what do we do during the winter time? And can this be done in Canada and that kind of stuff? And again, absolutely it can. I look at the forest. There are lots of forests all around me. And if that grows, so do other edible plants, right? It's just really ensuring that you have the correct plants for the climate zone. The correct trees is what I've really been learning. I'm listening to a book called Restoration Agriculture. And the gentleman in that book, Mark Shepard, I believe is his name. He talks about how you need to have a base kind of tree, right? That because it really is the most dominant. It's the biggest, it's the most dominant. And it kind of sets the ecosystem all around it, meaning the soil health and what will grow there. It really becomes, so let's say we use an oak tree for an example, with the acorns, which are edible, very highly nutritious, high fat content, high calorie content. We just don't process it and utilize them like we should be. But everything around that large oak tree will specifically work around the oak tree. So It's a matter of identifying kind of your core tree, your biggest, right, your elephant in the room, so to speak, and then the things that work with that tree to really produce that thriving environment or thriving biology.
Yeah, that guild, right? That community of plants that support each other, that work with each other, right? You've got the layers, you've got the dynamic accumulators like Comfrey that put tap roots down, and they suck up and they convert what's down in the ground into nutrients that then, as their leaves die and build soil, that soil is more nutrient dense on top, right? And then you've got the legumes and the plants that when you chop and drop them and their root systems die, they put all sorts of nitrogen and different other nutrients in the ground. And then your flowers, like that's one thing that we really love to put into every design is flowering plants, right? Strategically located for multiple different functions. And of course, one of our favorite functions is beauty. And so beauty, that's why these ornamental landscapes are appealing to people, because they look beautiful. But when you add functional and food and pollination, all these other things into the same ornamental landscape, you can literally, that's how we solve all the world's biggest problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for myself, not having a lot of experience in permaculture, it's been a fascinating journey over the past year. And one of the things that really stands out to me the most, which makes so much sense when you actually think about it, is covering the soil. You know, we garden and we grow our foods and we keep the soil exposed. And then we're out there every day watering, and we're out there every day trying to weed and pull out the competing crop and that kind of stuff. And it's just, when I finally heard that in the forest, it's covered and you mimic the forest, it was just like light bulb. Oh yeah, of course that makes sense. You have organic matter falling on the soil, which decomposes, breaks down, provides nutrients, and also protects the forest floor and the soil from sun, which is obviously, it gives life, and it also can be incredibly damaging, right? I have a gazebo outside, and that fabric material that's on the roof of that gazebo, obviously it's getting hit every day with sun, or every day the sun is out. And 1 year later, that thing is basically almost dust. Like if I push on it, it comes apart. So just think about what that does to soil year in, year out for decades or centuries, which is how we've been operating our factory farming systems right now. And it's no wonder that we are depleting the nutrients from the soil. It's no wonder we hear warnings of, you know, we have 60 harvests left until our soil is completely depleted. It's just a broken way of doing things. And yet the solution, as always, is embarrassingly simple.
Yes, as Bill Morrison
right?
said. Yeah, the agriculture taught in colleges and universities over the last 50 years is the most destructive teaching in the history of humanity.
Wow.
Right? And it's absolutely by design that way. It's a control mechanism for society. Right? So if that's the control, to become aware of the control, and then to become aware of the choice that is the solution to the control, that's the fun part. That's what our jobs are all about. And it's so much fun helping people see what's possible. You know, when I show people Chad's place, and they're like, I can't even believe it. The return on time and money invested to put a seed in the ground. Like I was at Perry's place too, right after that. And Perry Carlson, my buddy, he's a wood carver, and he's put all these different fruit trees, and not even permaculture style. He started getting inspired by me, hearing me talk about 5 years ago. He just went outside and started planting trees. He's got an apple tree that it looks like it has 1,000 apples coming on it, right? And they're about this big. They'll harvest starting in late August and September. And I said, Perry, how much time do you take maintaining that apple tree that's producing you minimum of 500 apples per year? And he laughed. He goes, oh God, I put it in the ground. I haven't done anything ever since. In 5 years, I've done nothing. So think about that return on investment. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's printing money.
It's printing money. People say money doesn't grow on trees. Yes, it does. Better than money grows on trees.
Yeah, and it's about to grow a whole lot more valuable.
I mean, speaking of that, I know you're very aware of what's going on in the world right now. The stuff happening in Germany and the Netherlands and all over the world. Sri Lanka. We just got a call from a good friend and brother. His name is Govinda. And Govinda is very passionate about helping. He's very connected to the Sri Lankan people. And he's like, Jim, we need to help these folks. I'm like, yes, we know exactly what to do. Like literally, we know how to bring that country from food dependent to food secure and food self-reliant in 3 years. In 3 years, the whole country. Now, this is with an organized effort and a strategy, right? And here's what I shared with him. I said, okay, here's how we do this. He said that the Buddhist community in Sri Lanka are kingmakers. In other words, they're very powerful. And then there's social media influencers. And then there's, of course, the politicians and the business owners. I said, buddy, I would like you to get somebody from each one of these different cultures within Sri Lanka, and let's get them together and let's strategize. And then let's put the word out through all of these different means, and let's create sweet potatoes, papayas, yucca or cassava and taro and some of the perennial spinaches, and these are plants that propagate incredibly easily. In fact, if sweet potatoes were the only thing, sweet potatoes would really save millions of people's lives over the next few years, right? And then get the message out in a strategic way, and then help create these local growth centers. And then you just propagate. Within 6 months, you can propagate one sweet potato slip like this big, can turn into hundreds more.
Outstanding. Well, we have Jean here.
Hey,
all
good
right.
morning.
Hey, good
How's
morning.
it going? How are you guys doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and pleasure.
Yeah,
Well,
we're so glad you join us.
Yeah, I jumped in while Jim was passionately talking about solutions, and I love that. So I always love to hear inspired energy in the morning.
Yes, well, you've been inspiring me for a long time. I've been a big fan of your channel, Inspired, since I first saw the title. And I was so joyfully envious of that title, because if I picked a title, that would be the title.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jim. And vice versa, of course, you know this. And that's why we've been in such close contact lately, and seeing and talking to each other and strategizing and all these things. But really the name was given. I can't take credit for that. It was my word for many years. I don't know if you guys do that, but I have a word. And it doesn't have to come up like at New Year's, but I usually have a word that I feel is going to, drive the energy through the year. And every year I've been checking in, it's still inspired. It's still inspired. It's still inspired. It's just that word. And so I came out of a meditation one morning, and the creator told me start a YouTube channel. And I was like, what do I call it? Inspired. And that was it. And that's the rest is history.
What does that name mean to you?
Well, so I let go of all religious, kind of connections with it. To me, it means being in the spirit, right? In the spirit. And the spirit is the purest, most beautiful, most wonderful thing. Whatever you do with that in your humaning, in your mind, and what we do, that might be tainted sometimes. But the spirit is pure. The spirit is pure love, pure energy, pure everything, right? And so, our mission was always to let that be the driver, be in the spirit, be truly inspired. And then even when you speak about, horrific things, or even when you go into dark places, which at times we all have to do to shine our light there, and to heal those places, you do not come from a place of anger or from fear or from worry or from, you come with that spirit, and that changes the tone of the conversation. And so we've come in touch with incredible people that have gone through or experienced really unimaginable things, and they've come out of it healed and inspired. And these are the people that are now driving change in the world, because they have gone through the worst you could possibly go through. They've come out of it, they healed, and they're showing the world that there's a really a better path for things, right? I mean, each and every one of you and of us is doing this in our own way. And now we're starting to really combine our knowledge, wisdom, ideas, forces, everything to drive this change. I think that's in a nutshell what that means to me.
Oh, I love it. That I speak a lot about in spirit, right? And enthusiasm, which is in feel, right? And it's an energetic thing, right? You can feel it. And that's, to be aware of the feeling is so important and so valuable. When I feel myself, and I'm watching some piece of news, right? And I feel myself shutting down or going into this place of less than inspired, I either turn off that news, or I take a few deep breaths and I say, what can I learn from this? Is this valuable to me? And then guess what? The answer is automatic. The answer either says no, it's an energetic answer, or it says yes, pay attention. And then I just follow that guidance, right?
And this is who you are, and this is how I've come to know you. And actually, in one of the upcoming videos that we're going to put out, we're going to talk about toxic positivity versus authentic joy. And those are two, especially in the quote unquote spiritual community. We have this thing that people are kind of hypnotized and thinking they need to think positive thoughts all the time. But if you have an unbalanced base state, right, then you're going to have this incredible frustration because there's something that isn't solved, isn't healed, that is constantly keeping you out of balance. And then your mind says, oh my God, I should think better thought. I should think better thought. I should think positive thoughts. And it doesn't work because you do not have the authentic feeling. And that drives a spiral downward. So authentic joy is what, for example, Jim, what you express most of the time. It's like comes from an authentic place. It is from a balanced state, and it is, it's always exponentially growing because of it. And those are two very different things. Authentic joy creates authentic change in your life, right? So when you come from that place, you create such an amazing amount of energy that you can literally move mountains, because this is how we were actually designed to be. And what our part of our mission is help people heal to come to that place, right? Because the healing is what we all need. We've all been traumatized on this planet, right? As you say, bad news, horror visions, fearful entertainment, all the visuals and the audio visuals are
childbirth. Childbirth, which
yes.
is crazy to say out loud, but that's one of the most traumatic experiences that people go through today, is when they're born, especially in the Western world. The way that our medical system has hijacked the power of the woman and the power and beauty of childbirth. There's so much trauma that children have that they don't really ever get to uncover as they go through that experience, and the impact that it has on the mom and the baby connection and all of that with our Western medical intervention, right? Women are so powerful, and delivering a child is what they're built for, right? They are built to bring that spirit into the world in a physical form. And we've robbed most of them of that and put so much fear around it. It is absolutely a detrimental impact on our society that needs to change.
I couldn't agree more. It's such a powerful thing. And I'm very cautious when I speak about childbirth, because in this lifetime, I am not a woman. So there's but I can speak from what women have told me that have actually done it differently, right? That haven't gone through our now basically. So you go to the same building, whether you are very sick or whether you're doing the most beautiful thing in the world, giving new life, and you just go to the same building with the same MO. That in itself is very wrong. But the women that have done it differently have told me that if you go with the ways of our ancestors, of the true ways, then it is, number one, pain is not a big part of that process. It can be, but it isn't mandatory in the process. And it's actually a spiritual, joyful experience that happens with a very, very small circle of people for a reason. And the bond is never interrupted. Like you say, you were hinting at, okay, here, we're going to take the baby and we're going to do whatever we're going to do. You don't even know. They go to a separate room, right, in a hospital.
Yeah.
And so it's a sacred experience. And the women who do it that way, you can tell that the children have a completely different, uninterrupted bond that doesn't need to be healed because it's never been broken, So I couldn't agree more. I second that fully. But of course, I'm careful in terms of how I say this because, my wife gives me that look and she says, well, you haven't given birth, so be careful.
Well, and I agree. And we can talk in empowerment and recognizing the power that a woman has. We have never given birth, nor can we. And the woman can. She's been designed by the creator to be able to do so, except we have now put it in a way that fear really dominates most women as they're leading up to childbirth. And I know from my experience, my wife and I have 2 children. Our oldest is 3, our youngest is 9 months old. Aww. And for both of those babies, Kayla worked on her meditation daily. She practiced yoga daily. She practiced breath work daily. She practiced really slowing down and feeling her feelings in her body. And when it came time to labor, she used no drugs, both babies, did it all at home, both babies. zero medical intervention, except on the first childbirth, our midwife panicked and left. So we had to follow them to the hospital. And then we only had one midwife at the home at that time. I'd never delivered a baby before, and neither had Kayla. So we were like, okay, I guess we got to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and literally 2 pushes and Ava was born and immediately right on Kayla's chest. And it was just a beautiful experience. But baby number 2 was born at home, no medical intervention at all. Umbilical cord was attached for over 50 minutes. So we did not rush the placenta out of her body. It came out as it was supposed to. The umbilical cord stayed attached to our baby. So you don't have to worry about the baby not breathing, right? If the baby's born and it's not breathing and it's attached to the umbilical cord and the placenta, no worries, it's still good. But when they cut it right away and the baby's not breathing, now it's a panic, right? So the baby was attached, the baby was loved and close the whole time. Finally, the midwife showed up about 30 minutes after the baby was born. And it was just our daughter is incredibly peaceful and super smiley and joyful. And we actually named her Joy. Her middle name is Joy. And she just radiates that feeling from her. And you can see the peacefulness in that baby's eyes because of that entering the world experience. It just such a peaceful transition from inside to outside.
That's amazing. And the thought that's really inspired within me is just to emphasize how much we should all honor the mothers, the women, the grandmother, the great mother, Mother Earth, and all the women who give life, and how sacred that is, and how beautiful it is. And how, like you say, society has basically put fear and worry and trauma around every natural creation process, whether that's birth, like you say, or whether that's all our other creative abilities that we have. Basically, we're always told this is dangerous. I mean, let's go back to food forest, growing food, right? I mean, literally the messaging is you shouldn't do it. This is dangerous. You're going to have bacteria and all the completely illogical, essensical stuff. But this is what an artificial system needs to do. It needs to create as much trauma and worry around the natural processes as possible if it wants to create that. And this is basically where we're at, right? This crossroads. This is the subject of our times, is we're at this crossroads. And I think my greatest inspiration currently is to bring that clarity to people and show this is it. I mean, you always have decisions. You're never really truly forced to do anything. You can allow yourself to be forced, and then you've made a decision, or you stand in your truth and you stand for what you believe in, and you do it the way you believe it's right. And that's where we're standing. And we currently have really 2 pitches. One that is not clearly defined because the pitch of the system, of the artificial system, is very much hidden, right? It comes through the back door and it gives a little bit of information, but not really. And our pitch of mankind and the natural divine being that is fully out in the open. We're fully transparent on what we're pitching to our fellow brothers and sisters, which is a much better way, and actually our original culture. And it entails everything you just talked about, like the natural birthing process, the natural creation process, the growing and being in harmony with nature. So that's really the pitch here. And I think, some, 300 years ago, not quite, but almost, we had a Declaration of Independence. Now we need a Declaration of Independence. We need to add a C, a declaration. We need action of independence. This is where we're at. And there's no more years to strategize and plan. And we got to step into action now.
I love that. I'm going to be using that one a lot, buddy. So I've got a couple relevant things that I've learned regarding the birth process from Dr. Joseph Chilton Pierce. He wrote The Magical Child and the Cracking the Cosmic Egg. And I saw him speak one time, and he was speaking about how when a mother is pregnant, if the mother is experiencing stress and fear and worry and all of these things in society, especially in some cultures of society, they're hearing gunshots out their front door, then the child's skull will be significantly thicker and their forebrain will be less developed. So they are literally born to a world of fighting. Right? They're literally born tougher than a baby that is in a completely peaceful womb with all joyful feelings and love, who actually has more development in their brain and a thinner skull. To me, when I heard that, it made so much sense. I was like, wow. Another thing that I want to share, because I just, 3 years ago, we had my daughter, Sophia, at the hospital, and they tried with the most wicked anger and judgment, which I don't give a crap about, right? Like, they tried to get me to hand over my baby so they could take the baby in another room and put a bunch of needles in her. And I literally had to stand up, and before the birth and right after the birth, I would not let Sophia out of my sight, because so to anybody out there who's about to go through this process, do not let them tell you what they can do to your baby, because it's your choice. So I'd like to encourage everybody to stand firm on that.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a whole process involved that it's too deep to go into, but something happens that is basically inserting this new life into this artificial system. And there's a whole process. It starts with the medical interventions right away. And it's completed with the birth certificate that's being issued because of the registration. And there's a whole legal process that basically gives this new life an adapter into the artificial system, right? And so nobody's aware, or now more and more people are. But this is what happens. This is why it happens in a hospital where there are people who are bound to their processes that need to make those processes happen, or they'll lose their job. This is designed that way. And we're always sounding like we're wanting to fight everyone so badly when we say this. No, it's just about showing the truth and giving people options. When people know the truth, then they have two options. And this is literally what we're doing here, right? Is exploring this and bringing solutions that are now so readily available. I mean, Jim, you've shown that the most basic thing, like nature does it effortlessly, kind of the universe does nothing and leaves nothing undone, right? That's in the Tao, and it's kind of with nature the same. If you leave it alone, it kind of does nothing, but it leaves nothing undone. Everything is here in abundance, and you're starting to show the world a process that will allow them to create this and let it happen and be the beneficiary and the custodian of this process. And I think this is so important.
And that just shows you how powerful the woman is.
Yes.
Right? You look at nature and what the woman is able to do and develop in 9 months, this seed and sperm, or seed and egg, and it turns into life. And the woman can bring that life into this plane without the medical interventions. Are they necessary? Sometimes, without a doubt, they are. And thank you for that. And if more women just embraced their power and released the fear around it, we would see a drastic reduction in trauma in babies, which then spans the rest of their life because it never gets addressed and healed.
If I may, I want to just suggest something for I think the best comprehensive understanding of this whole process, from creation to birth and everything around it, which I call our original culture, all of ours, because we all share one original culture that we were given, is best described in the Ringing Cedars books.
Yeah, there it is.
By Vladimir Megre. And I would please, if you guys could put this in the description of this podcast, so people can actually find them, read them over and over again. The most important 10 books of your life. And I'm not bashing scripture or the Bible or the other religious books that might be very important and monumental for you. I'm just saying this has absolutely changed our lives many, many years ago, and has allowed us to create a vision within ourselves that is stronger than anything else. It cannot be diminished anymore, because it's so authentic and true. So these books describe all of that, and so much more in great detail, and on a soul level.
That is so, it's funny, John, Matthew and I talked about asking you about those books. I am so thankful for you getting those to me, and I'm very excited to read them. My daughter brought the first one, Anastasia, to Costa Rica. And so I'm really excited to get that back and then start reading, because from what you've told me, and Matthew had the same experience, like about a dozen people between Matthew and I have said, you've got to read these books. And it's really cool. I'm going to jump into those. Oh, one thing I wanted to share too, this idea of awareness, right? So everybody always does the best they can based on the choices that they are aware of. Even the word choice is almost always misused, because when we say he or she had a choice, they didn't have a choice if they weren't aware that they had a choice. And sometimes when we get in this low energy or we get stuck in our programs, then we're not aware of these amazing choices. So what we're all about is simply showing people what's possible, because once people are aware, and I'm going after Warren Buffett, and Apple, and all of these people that are out there, not expecting them through their own will to listen to what I'm saying. I don't think they're even aware that that choice exists. But what will happen is people within these organizations will hear what we're saying. And I'll give you an example. If Apple invested 5% of their worth into our society, specifically this way, 5% of their worth would be $100 billion. They're worth $2 trillion. $100 billion would put $1 million food forest education sites in 100,000 locations around the world. That would radically change the world, and it would be the best investment that Apple could ever make on a pure business basis, right? So we keep sharing these and making people aware of the choices that could be had. When the military spends 1 or 2% of their energy, or 5 or 10%, let's say, on actually doing things that would actually secure our country, like putting food forests everywhere, or when the churches use their land and put food forests, they put the Garden of Eden right on their land and use their land as a nursery for their communities to take those seeds and bring them home, right? It just stacks. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. It's about creating awareness, because then people will choose wisely.
I've had this discussion with my daughter yesterday, because we broke a pretty amazingly big story yesterday about this, the works of the social credit system, and how far it's already developed, and how close it is to being, at least they want to implement it. I want to emphasize that's what they want. That's what they're, and we talked about how the choices, you literally just what you spoke about. And we talked about the conditioning of choices, and how through our education system, people are conditioned to have 4 choices, multiple choice tests. They have like A, B, C, D. Well, what if the choice isn't A, B, C, or D, but it's outside of that? It's not on the paper. It's not there. But you're not even inspired. You go to university and you have multiple choice tests, which means you do not tap into your creative power when you answer something. You do not tap into your own process. You just pick one of the pre-picked choices, and that's it, right? So that's how you go through life. So then when you go out, you go, oh, I have all these choices: Pepsi or Coke, Republican or Democrat. It's all very binary, or maybe 3 or 4, but they're really all the same. I mean, let's be honest, they're all of the same cloth. It's one energy. And like you just said, we have an abundance and an infinite possibilities of choices, but we don't know it. And then when we first understand that's the case, then we can go and look. None of these make sense here that are being offered to me, but here are some. They're not as prominently displayed. They're not up front at the register, but they're still there. I just have to find them, and all of a sudden you see this makes so much more sense. Because what you're suggesting, and I think it's always so important to emphasize, is this is working with nature and simply giving yourself the possibility to greatly benefit and harmonize with that process. You are simply giving yourself the best possible chance to be independent and free. And only when you do that, you can actually explore what else is possible. Because right now we're so boxed in and so dependent on all the structures that we have no control over. I want to emphasize this. When people say, I have all this freedom because I have money in my bank account, no, bullshit. You have the illusion of freedom, because all that money is not worth anything if whatever the system decides is going to happen tomorrow, closes down the stores or disallows the gas sales or whatever. So these structures are outside of our control. We didn't build them. We don't control them. But if we begin, like you say, implementing these strategies, the nature, food, water, the most important things, and we become independent in our communities, in our churches, in our yards, in our HOAs, and wherever we are, all of a sudden it opens up this whole universe of possibilities. And it begins with being fully self-reliant and self-responsible. I mean, this is life. This is what it really means to be alive, to be fully responsible.
Yeah. And dude, I live in Canada, and we think this can't happen here, right? Can't happen in the United States. Well, last week, Rogers Communication, which is one of the largest, there's really 3 dominant telecom internet providers in the country. Rogers network countrywide went down. So we had no phone, no internet, no payment processing, banks. You couldn't take money out of certain banks. Everything was gone all day. They're saying they don't know why. Now there's obviously hints of cyber attack. But the point of what I'm saying is everything was taken away from everybody to the point where they didn't even have 911 access in some places. Just like that. We woke up, no service. I was able to get over to a Walmart and message Jim and a couple other people in the team, and then reach out to some appointments that I had, but I was completely cut off from service. And made my wife and I go, well, we probably need to work with multiple carriers just to ensure that if this happens again, we still have access to one of the 3 networks. And it also made us say, we need to buy a 2-way radio, get some walkie-talkies, because that doesn't go down. They communicate to one another. So we're going to get those and putting them on our property, because we need to have some sort of system of communication if this whole thing goes down. And they're talking about it happening, right? So why, again, it makes me go, why would we move everything to digital as people? Why would the people agree to it when the second the power is out, you now have lost access to all communication, all your money, everything?
Because they don't know. Because they don't know. Because people do not engage in that thought process. They go about their regular programmed schedules. They go to work, they take their kids to school. Now some sort of, some form of normalcy can now, after 2.5 years, kind of reestablished itself, but people don't think about it until it happens. But what you said is there is no logical explanation for the biggest carrier in Canada and the oldest carrier, as far as I remember Rogers from way back when, but
yeah, it's a big one. Yeah.
They have a company like that has so many safety protocols that when one part of the system goes down, it triggers a disconnect from the other parts, because you need that, because governments are connected to it. That's a contingency plan. So I call BS on a whole system going down unless you wanted to and test something. At the same time, we're seeing nuclear warnings in New York and nuclear tests in Austin, Texas, and emergency preparedness. And I call this is just another fear strategy, but what can we learn from it is step into self-reliance even faster, communicate now, as long as we still can, even stronger, and build physical communities, right? This is also very important. Your neighbors. I mean, it was never a better moment to introduce yourself to your neighbors, start talking. Chances are they're already thinking similarly to you. We just explored this here in our communities, that people are actually becoming more and more aware, And so if you can be a shining light in your community, if you can be someone who's already beyond the fear and already in action, or already in inspired action, man, you're just becoming a leader for your community, not to rule, but to be a shining light and help them find their own light. But these are all signs that the system is giving us. Fair warning, kind of. here's what we're gonna do. We just wanted to give you a little glimpse of what we're doing here, so no one can say, well, you weren't warned, you weren't prepared. And I think it's time for people to step out of the thinking, oh my God, I'm just 5 years away from retirement and I got all this saved, and all this old paradigm thinking. This is gone. This is gone. Unless you want to be boxed into the system, then okay, then, you know, by all means, play the game. But if you want to be free, this is gone. This programmed thing is gone, and it's over with. And if you need to grieve, but do it and move on, because we have to truly take matters into our own hands and live our lives how we were designed to do it, you know, in all ways. And this inspires me. It inspires me to think that this time is finally here.
Yes.
15 years ago, I thought it's here. And we've been at this for so long. And so when it's now finally beginning to happen, people are panicking. But I'm saying, be happy. We all wanted this slave system to come down. It's never been a good thing. You know, it put us into these tiny boxes, removed from our true faculties and capabilities, detached. And now it's coming down. So we need to celebrate and take inspired action.
You make such a good point about connecting with your community too, and realizing that there's a lot more people than we currently may believe that are actually thinking like us. It's people keep it quiet because of the fear of what their friends and neighbors and family will think. But internally, they feel something is off. And it just takes you being willing to lead, being willing to put yourself out there, and you'll quickly see that they're questioning it too. And that crack in the armor is what we need to continue to see happening, right? Like the powers that be are definitely feeling that there is an undercurrent uprising, and it's much larger than they want us to believe. There are way more people who are now losing trust in the systems, the governments, the systems around us, the medical field, you know, all that stuff. And they're starting to break free the shackles. And now it's about, you're bang on there, being willing to lead, being willing to put yourself out there and showing your neighbors how you are there for them, how you want to support them if possible, and that we are all in this together. You know, that term was used so much during the pandemic in a way to unify us to stay home and to keep ourselves separated from one another, because they didn't want us talking, right? They didn't want me sharing my thoughts with you, because that would break their story. But it really is true that we all are in this together, but it's not about staying separate. It's about actually getting together and communicating openly with truth, leading with love, leading with those positive emotions, that authentic joy, as you talked about earlier, and inspiring people that this is our chance to tear down these systems. We have the opportunity now, and it's time.
It's the greatest opportunity in the history of the world. Like, it's so epic right now. So here's what we're doing at Galt's Landing. So we're planting, we have 52 acres and we're planting it out to the max. Now you only need, a couple hundred square feet and you can grow a ton of food. So, but we're using Galt's as a demonstration site to show maximum yield on minimum input. And one of the things we're doing here, and about probably Labor Day-ish, we're going to do an open house for the community. We're going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of starts of sweet potatoes and papaya and moringa and these different plants. And we're going to invite them in. We're going to share with them what's going on. And then we're going to, for free, give them whatever one they want. They can have a moringa tree. They can have a sweet potato slip. And then we're going to talk to them about how to then grow that out and how to utilize that asset to help secure their food supply. And I'm so excited about this. That's what Galt's Landing is for, is to demonstrate and to make people aware of what's possible. And it's logical for us. And this is where everybody could do this. Like I said, you could have 100 square feet. You could even turn a basement room or a closet into a grow system. And then you can start propagating from your growth system. You can start giving some extras to your friends and your family and your community, because we're very aware that the food supply chain could completely collapse. And I say could because I don't like to be, too positive about things, even though I'm pretty darn sure it's baked in the cake already. Long term, it for sure is, right? Short term could be a big issue as well. So let's everybody get. In fact, Jean, you have My Patriot Supply as one of your affiliates, right?
Yes, we do.
So where can they find that? Because I think getting a 3 to 6 month supply along with seeds is a no-brainer.
I'll share the link with you here, and you can put that in the description, and we'll put a coupon code. We try to get people as much opportunity to save, because there's a lot to do right now, right? So I understand that, and heavy investments for families. So they can save, I think, $150 on a 3-month supply. And it's something that to me is insurance, because at this point, and here's, I don't want to kind of sound panicky, but we were looking for currently healthier alternatives, even for preparedness food. There are like freeze-dried stuff. And unless you're buying a freeze-dryer, which is quite the investment, right? It starts at about $2,000. It's an amazing investment if you can, because you can then freeze dry pretty much everything, and it retains 90% of the nutrients. So that's an amazing, but a lot of people cannot afford that. The problem right now is that you do not get anything. Everything is sold out, right? I talked to my friend Mike Adams, the health ranger. They are completely sold out, and there's just no way right now to produce the kind of quantities that they would need. So this already shows us something, right? And they have known about this for many years, that this is coming. So they are as prepared as you could be. But My Patriot Supply still does have, and why I encourage people to do it is, if everything else fails, you will still have, and if you ration it, you can go far longer. That's based on a regular American diet, which is overeating as it is, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think they do 2,000 calories, right, per meal, or 2,200 calories.
Yeah, so you can definitely go longer on a 3-month food supply if you're not overeating. And it's kind of peace of mind. You have it stored. It comes in discrete boxes, and you just put it wherever you, in a closet or garage, and it's there, 25 years shelf life. So peace of mind in that regard, right? So we'll share the link, and that's important. But to me, let's also tell people there's also this other side of, there will be in this process a lot of people who might have means but have not started on growing food. So if you're someone who's already started, who already has their food garden, and who already has a plethora of everything, there will be farmers market or small community markets, or a stand on the side of the road where you sell whatever you don't need for your family, and you have income, or you barter, or whatever it is. But people also need to see, like I said, this is a literal also financial return of investment, and can be quite amazing. And it will be such high quality food that won't be even comparable to the very bad stuff you get in the grocery store, that it is completely lacking any nutrients. So when we say the food supply chain is breaking down, it's really the poison supply chain that's breaking down, which of course should also be celebrated, but we understand the implication it has. We don't want anyone to go hungry. But the truth is, nobody needs to go hungry. We can turn this ship around really, really fast, but we need hands on deck. Really, we need people, really everybody to whatever they can do. There's no reason for churches to have 10 acres of lawn where that need to be manicured, need to be sprayed, and it depletes the soil of nutrients, and it creates this vicious cycle. Every year, more pesticides. Put a food garden in. Let the community help you. Make it an event. Let people, for once, they shouldn't put on their suits on Sunday. They should come in their work outfit in their garden, where let's plant the seeds together. Let's really see what it means to plant the seeds of hope, of faith, of the real seeds, the real life seeds that the Creator has given, and bring the community together and then harvest together, right? A real Thanksgiving, the harvest from the, imagine the celebrations that we will have when we come together like this, not the crappy fake buns that we put our burgers in and whatnot. You know, we can shift perception and have young children pick fresh fruits for the first time from a tree and see what it does and how it feels. And it's the seeds they have planted. It's a fruit that was literally grown for them. My goodness, there's so much love and beauty in this vision. So I don't see a reason why not, you know, everyone that can should get on board right now. And I'm calling on everyone who's listening. If you have the means, but you know, you might have the money right now and somebody else might be very inspired to do the work. Well, let's come together, you know, give a few $1,000s to install a food garden. My goodness, what, you know, you're going to go and spend it on $6 lattes anyway, every day. So just go and do something that's a real legacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I gotta share. So just this last couple of days, I went and met a man named Jerry and his wife Diane, and we go and we're in southern Minnesota, and he's got a farm of about 38 acres. He grows 5 different kinds of mushrooms, about 10 different kinds of annuals, and he's got some walnut trees and stuff, and a lot of raspberries and berries on his property, just naturally from the birds. And so what I shared with him, he's getting old. He's 70, I think he's 72. And he's like, Jim, I don't want to farm anymore. And I said, oh my gosh, buddy, you are so wise. Oh, and they preserve and can. They do their own wine. They do all sorts of mushrooms and tomatoes and salsas and almost everything, right? Right on site. They can and preserve food, which, by the way, is incredibly easy to do. And so I go, how about this? Do you like teaching? Because I could tell he loved teaching. So he goes, well, I mean, I'm not much of a teacher. I said, well, would you rather sit here behind this desk, right, where he's got his canning room, and talk to people for a couple hours about how to preserve food? Or would you rather be out there doing the annual gardening? He goes, I'd rather be sitting here. I said, okay. And what if you're, instead of making X amount per hour out in the field, what if you're making 10 times that and you're sharing your knowledge with people? And he goes, I like the sounds of that. So we put this out to our network, and we're bringing in people where we're exactly what you just said, is we're combining the people who want to do the work, the permaculture work out in the field, along with the teachers. And we create these collaborative networks where everybody gets what they want, and it becomes an incredible resource to humanity. So everybody can do this. If you have knowledge, even if you don't know how to preserve food, within a week of study, you could literally know exactly how to preserve food from multiple different perspectives. And how valuable of a service is that to society? I'd say it's pretty darn high, right? So I just want to plant the seeds of ideas. If you're looking for your next thing, be involved. Join us in how to bring self-reliance and declare action to society.
I think something that's very important for people to understand, better word, for them to understand, is how simple growing food can be. Our perception is that it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of water, a lot of fertilizing, a lot of weeding. It doesn't need to be that way. There are trees, there are bushes, there are plants that are perennial. They come back year in, year out, and they will produce food year in, year out. And they will produce more food every year as they grow. And a prime example, there's a 4,000-year-old chestnut tree still producing chestnuts. There are multi-thousand-year-old olive trees still producing olives. There are century-old apple trees still producing apples. No one is out there taking care of those things day in, day out. No one's pulling the weeds from around them. And then what you do is you combine those perennial edible plants and trees and bushes into what's called a food forest, a permaculture food forest. And you let those things work in harmony with nature. So the design part is the most critical part. And that's what Food Forest Abundance as a company really is excellent at. So we get those designs done, and then we help you get that food into the ground, those perennial plants into the ground. And what begins to happen is that nature takes over. We don't expose the soil, we keep it covered. We work in harmony with nature, just like the forest, where you don't see anybody out there every day watering the forest, right? What you do see is the forest floor is covered with organic matter. You do see that there's different plants that grow in shade and different plants that need the sun, but they all work the way they're supposed to and get what they need, and they grow in their right zone, which is what the design is all about. And then it's really effortless. Someone can plant a forest and leave that forest and come back a decade later and have that forest 10 times bigger or 20 times bigger, right? So we have this belief, and that's been conditioned into us, that the garden is the only way to do it, where you clear your soil, you expose it all, and you plant your rows of your different veggies and that kind of thing. And then daily you're out there watering and that stuff. And that is one way to do it. But that's got us to where we're at today. And there is a better way forward. And that is working with nature in a perennial plant environment where they are growing year in, year out, over and over and over again, thriving bigger and bigger every year, and that it is way less work and will provide you with the nutrients you need. And it does solve all of the world's problems, as you talk about, Jim. When we put the food back in the hands of the people, and we do it in such a way where they're not having to worry about all the extra effort involved and the water and all those things, we now can create a new level of freedom, a new level of financial gain, because every time that fruit tree produces an apple or a peach or whatever it is, you're now not having to spend that money in a grocery store and buy food from a company who doesn't actually care about you and your family, that's got a poisonous chemicals all over it and whatnot. This is something that nature developed for you. You gave it love. It provides you with instant life force as you pull it from the tree and put it into your body. So you benefit in so many ways: your health, your vitality, your pocketbook, your community, your happiness, your joy, and you've strengthened your community, right? Because if everybody now grows a little bit, the issue of a food crisis in the grocery store dramatically decreases, because now we've got food at home. There's less demand in the store. So the people that need to go to the store because they live in a condo, maybe they can't grow as much. Maybe they just grow a small amount on their balcony, but they need the grocery store. Now there's free things that are available there because I didn't have to take it, right? So I just wanted to get that point across, that what we currently believe as growing food is hard. It's not true. It is much simpler than we currently believe.
I wanted to share, because it goes back to our whole conversation, what you just said, combined with how we said, how to inspire people to do that, right? And so often we do things not knowing, simply by leading by example. And I'll give you a very close to home example from us here. So Christine, my wife, she has 10 green fingers and 10 green toes, and her heart is green. And so her and any plants are they're instant relatives, and there's a love relationship that you can see in everything. And you can, when she's in the garden, when she's among the plants, she's in that state fully. I mean, she won't even hear you when you call her often, because she's communicating, and just some beautiful thing to watch. And so next door, we have a young couple that moved here a few years ago. And aside from in the beginning exchanging a few words, kind of when you see each other, there wasn't really much communication. And we felt they were kind of closed off and didn't look very happy either, to be honest, just very, intense and stressed and whatnot. You would never see them out in the garden. You would never see them out being in nature, because we're backing up to the woods here. So it's a very beautiful natural environment. And, we would do our thing, and Christine would be out there every day and with the plants and doing what she does. And we'd be out there sitting and talking and planting and doing and whatever we do. And so over the years, we noticed they would start looking a little more and looking a little more. And this year especially, and they would start coming out more. They have a little son now. They would start coming out more, and they would spend 10 minutes out, and then 20, and then 30, and then all of a sudden you could start seeing them coming out more and more in their free time, being more curious. And so, and then this year, this spring, they start putting up garden beds, and they start, and
Wow.
and they, in the beginning, they were almost looking at our garden as something that, these weird people are planting food here, right? And then they start asking Christine, so how do you do this and that? And you could see life coming back to them. And then they said, we've been watching you. We call you the garden lady, and we got really inspired. And so recently they've shared more and more, and now, and they didn't know what we were doing. They didn't know about our YouTube channel. So this was just from observing, just from being in the spirit of things. And now they came out and said, hey, listen, we're so frustrated with our jobs. We're so inspired by your family and how you live. We're looking for work where we can help people. And they are fully, they're wanting to heal on all levels and become or live this inspired life, in harmony with everything. And it was simply, but we were just us. We weren't talking, trying to, spread the gospel here. We were just doing what we were doing. But because the field, people respond to the field that you create around you, right? They respond to your energy. And naturally, everybody gravitates towards the highest energy in the room or in the field. That's naturally what happens. When someone enters a room and they have great charisma, real from the inside, everybody gravitates towards that person. They just want to get to know them. And so when you're in this authentic, inspired field, people, who are they? What are they doing? I want to feel like that. I want to smile too. And the whole point here being is, if you are, watching or listening right now, and you are wondering whether you should be that pioneer in your community, whether you should step out and do something a little crazy, like planting a food forest, like being, this gardener out there, and you're worried what people might think, I can tell you, more often than not, they will jump on board. They will get inspired. They will feel the energy. So be the pioneer right now. Like I can only encourage you, and it creates so much beautiful energy.
Oh, yeah.
Like Christine has literally, just by being her every day, doing what she does, inspired a whole family, because the parents then come around, and it created this upward spiral into something very beautiful and life-giving. And it's just, I'm beyond grateful, to have had this opportunity without even knowing we had this opportunity to do it.
That is so cool. And you two have inspired thousands and thousands of families and people. So, and that is so epic. I just want to recognize you for that. Wow, I actually got emotional right there. It's a beautiful thing, brother. You and Christine have done such epic work in this world. And I feel we are so fortunate to be collaborating with you. And because we put our minds together, right? We use the processes that we are communicating to relax and meditate into the possibility and to create an intention and a vision of a world. Humanity is going to go from its sickest ever to the most healthy we've ever been, which is a vibrational rise. It's an ascension that we're in the midst of right now, right? It's so exciting these times.
I couldn't agree more. And Jim, you know this, whenever we speak, when we're together, it's never hard work. Like the ideas flow, they click, and we don't have to sit around a table and literally, do brainstorming, right? There's just a natural harmony around this subject that creates new ideas. Oh, I'm going to call this person. Let us connect you with this person. Boom. Next thing you know, it's already happening, And
Right.
this is what happens when, like you always say, when the time for an idea has come, it's unstoppable.
Yeah.
And this idea is the creator's original idea for mankind. Okay. So we're simply remembering what the creator has given us. Everything is already here. This is remembering it and implementing it. So we couldn't be happier to, do our part in helping getting this vision out there. And this has been our initial inspiration for everything anyway. It's simply to empower people into the true original culture again. And that is being independent, being joyful, being in community and family, and realizing we're powerful beyond our wildest imagination when we detach from the artificial realm and infuse ourselves in the natural realm. It's just absolutely amazing.
It sure is. From governmente to lightmente to freedom of mind. And then the ideas flow. And then we intend the strategy, right? We get very logical with these ideas, which is also inspiring. And we say, okay, what else can we do? What other layers can we put in? What other elements of society can we work with to inspire this shift? And then we say, okay, and then boil it down to the lowest common denominator, which is the foundation of freedom, is developing these food forests right into the fabric of society. You were mentioning your friends next door. The business model of being a food forest cooperative partner is exactly that, is taking that energy, their desire to help, and turning it into an incredible business model. Right? If anybody out there wants to be in this business of serving their community, it's very similar to landscaping. It's foodscaping, and it is literally freedomscaping, right? And so I would love to invite them to have a call with Matthew about exactly this, about how they can be involved. And then, oh my gosh, this is where it goes exponential when we start seeding these ideas and people say, wait a minute, most people's jobs are threatened right now in the normal world of poison production and unsustainable, ridiculous stuff, and say, wait a minute, I can actually turn my energy towards something and be part of this transition. And I tell you, it feels so good.
During the Second World War, everybody created victory gardens. Remember, most people have probably heard of that. And some things very dramatic happened when those were created. You saw chronic disease plummet, actually, as people started growing their own food. And I'm here to suggest that I think now is the time that we all start growing freedom gardens, right?
Yes.
Freedom gardens. Let's get everybody growing their freedom garden, because we can create that. It's here. It's ready for us to adopt. The world wants it. The world needs it. Our health needs it, right? The power that has been ripped from us, subconsciously programmed away from us at a very early age, it's time we all take that back. It's here, right? The human is the apex species at the moment, and we have so much more power than we're ever led to believe. Those freedom gardens will give us that life force that we need, so we have the energy and vitality to go and reclaim the world and abundance that is rightfully deserved by all of us.
Amen. And that's the grand conspiracy. You just touched it. The grand conspiracy is making us believe we're small, insignificant, and powerless. That's the biggest one. That's the whole thing. And so we rediscover this. And I want to say something else, because you just said it, health, and how this improved. And there's a secret factor to this. And this sounds woo-woo and out there, but it really comes from studying the books that I talked about earlier, the Ringing Cedar books. Let thy food be thy medicine means more than it leads us to believe. What happens when you plant your own garden, when you have your own food, when you are the one who's putting the seeds in the ground, and when you are even infusing those seeds with your information, what does that mean? Like putting a seed in your mouth and the saliva or the whatever, when you walk on the soil and the toxins from your feet go into the soil, the seed has the ability to actually read that information and then produce the fruit that's going to heal whatever deficiencies there are. So let thy food be thy medicine is truer than we think it is. So that's how intelligently designed it is. It isn't just that it can produce, one seed can produce a monumental tree that's going to be there for thousands of years. No, it can actually produce a tree that's custom designed to give you or your family exactly what it needs and to heal you from any ailment that there is. This sounds absolutely woo-woo, but it's absolutely 100% true. And the proof is in the pudding. People who actually do it and do it the proper way are healthy, vital, live long lives, are young and strong. And it's absolutely amazing. So it's much more than that. If it's, this is how deep this really goes. And this knowledge is now coming back into our purview. We're starting to know this again, remember this. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's epic. It's so epic. I mean, I just standing at Gauss Landing or standing in Costa Rica in a food forest, when I walk 10 feet, so there's this one food forest in Costa Rica where it's next to, on three sides, there's coffee plantations. So there's 80 acres in the middle of all these coffee plantations. The 80 acres in the middle is just exploding with life and life energy. You walk 10 steps into the coffee plantation next door, and it's quiet. And you feel it. There's a vibrational feeling that you can feel. Up at Chad's the other day, you just feel this rise of energy. And I said, Chad, what would happen if you walked away from this food forest for 10 years? And he said, it would be 10 times as big, because it's already happening. The birds and the wind and the animals are coming into his system, and then they're taking plants and seeds from his system out into the forest around, and they're planting new stuff. So what we're doing is we're just helping to initiate and helping to speed up the process of this idea of the Garden of Eden everywhere. And I like to always frame that, the word legion means Roman army, right? I don't want to join the Roman army to re-legion. I want a direct connection. And this is the direct connection, right? For this myth that there's some entity that is between us and spirit is simply another form of mind control. It's a fear narrative, right? So the half-truth and all the wonderful people that are involved in all the religions around the world, amazing. Let's plant seeds and help them see that religion, their real spirituality, is all around us all the time.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And one more thing to the health thing, because it literally concerns especially North America, but now Europe too, obesity. I just thought about that because what happens is when you pick, and this just came to my mind because I was picking tomatoes yesterday for a salad. And so when I pick one tomato here in our garden and I eat it, it's almost like after a few minutes, I almost feel full from one tomato. It's so nutrient dense as opposed to the stuff that you usually eat. And obesity is simply happening because you don't get nutrients from the food you eat. So your body constantly tells you it's hungry, which is just saying, I need nutrients. So you eat, but you never get it. When you eat one apple from your own tree, you will be full. I mean, you know what I mean? Where you would usually, I need another one, you will be full. So it will automatically, without dieting, without suffering, without having any of these things, it will automatically bring things back to a balance. I mean, this is literally as you say so often, it's the answer to so many questions. This is a no-brainer at this point. And it's especially, I want to say this to everyone who has disposable income, right? Or has disposable money. I know people are out there saying, hey, listen, I'm already like on the limit. But there are many of you out there who are not. What better investment could you make right now for yourself and your family? If you have more, help your family members plan, help your church plan, help your communities plan. Come on. What better investment? What could be better than generating health, wealth, abundance, freedom for you, your families, everybody? I mean, I can't think of any better way than doing this.
And if you want to do it selfishly, and what I mean by that is if you want to do it selfishly and do it to be remembered and to have your business be promoted or whatever, if you made a donation and put a $50,000 food forest in a public place, well, we put up a sign and a plaque recognizing you, and that stays there forever, continually feeding your ego if you need it, right? Getting you recognized for more business, for your contribution. That's a time when your donation dollars go, you see the product of what you invested in, right? You donated to. Whereas typically today, you give that donation to XYZ charitable organization, you don't know where that dollar goes, right? You have no idea. But this is a way you can physically see it get put in the ground. You can physically see it year over year as it grows and thrives. And you can see the impact in that local community, which I would bet, as you mentioned here, Jean, about the health improvements, I would bet if somebody did a study in community food forests that the community that lives around that and that benefits from that produce, their health markers would improve, and you would more than likely see a decrease in chronic disease.
I'm 100% certain, of course, if you did this, but also remember a vision into the future, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, and your grandchild or your child will ask you, well, do you remember the food crisis of 2024? And you say, no, we didn't have a food crisis. As a matter of fact, we had an abundance of food. We could share, we could give. Our community was fine, and we inspired millions of others to do the same. Our children, our grandchildren will ask us the questions. They will ask us, why didn't you do anything different? Couldn't you see it coming? Didn't you see the downfall of it all? And when we say we did, and we did something about it, it will instill a level of trust and faith and love in them. And they will carry this on. They will not, like so many other generations, lose all their trust in their elders because their elders didn't do anything about it. They just went along. We have the opportunity to be this healing generation where the future generations will say, I'm proud of my parents. I'm proud of my grandparents. They helped us shift. They helped bring the world back to a beautiful state. I mean, just that's the most beautiful legacy. These children that will have a twinkle in their eyes because they will be told the stories about a world where people were suffering and sick and depressed and taking drugs all the time. And we have the possibility to shift this. We have the possibility to tell our grandchildren, you know what, we saw it and we knew something had to be done. And so what you're seeing today, we created it for you. We created it for you. They will be filled with pride and love and joy in their hearts, and they will carry this on in perpetuity forever.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's what I meditate on every day. I'm 102 years old. It's 50 years from now. And I'm sitting at Galt's Landing, and my grandkids are running around, and there's a party over here with a bunch of you guys and friends. And it's just life everywhere, the birds and the butterflies and the rabbits and the monkeys. And I mean, it's just pure life everywhere. And we are talking around the campfire of the great war that we helped to win. Maybe we use different terminology, but this great struggle that we helped to overcome, and then to produce this abundance and beauty everywhere globally. Like, this is a global thing. And it's the whole thing is global right now. And that's what's so amazing about it, is we're able to communicate with people all around the world, and they're able to say, I can do this. And then we create these little patches, right? And they're expansive. It's like the antivirus. It's like the anti-cancer, right? Because there's cancer everywhere. Now we're putting seeds in and building soil, which is like the immune system, and we're spreading it, right? Oh my gosh, is it fun?
Well, everybody, this has been a remarkable conversation. Jean, thanks so much for joining us today. There was one thing that I discovered about you yesterday that Jim didn't know either. I understand that you grew up in Austria, but you were also a country music singer and spent a lot of time touring around in Austria, and then brought yourself over to the United States and went to Nashville.
Yeah. It's funny. There's almost like two sets of people that know me for different things. There's the Inspired tribe that knows me for our channel, and then there's my MIPs, let's call them my most important people in the music side that know me for that. Yes, so songwriting is really, that's my first creative love. It's like I love it very much, and I'm currently recording a new album, which is exciting. And country music's in my heart, and also a vehicle for me to transport things. Not in a not necessarily every song is a message, but in terms of feeling and emotion and what comes out to people. There's, of course, we're all multifaceted, sometimes we're so single-minded on a mission, but we're multifaceted beings, and that's what brought us here. And I have great love for your country. I have great love for Canada. Spent a lot of time there. I used to be a professional alpine skier.
Oh, did you? Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, I'd race Lake Louise and places like that. And that
did you ever race in Thunder Bay?
No. Oh. I did. My favorite races were the downhill in Lake Louise and the Super G.
Yeah.
Those I loved. And I spent a lot of time up there training in the preseason because the conditions are awesome when Europe is still fairly warm. So I have great love for Canada, and I was sad over the past few years to see what's happening, but we're turning the ship around. There's no other way. We're turning the ship around everywhere, and we're literally taking, we're becoming the captains here, not to rule, just to lead and let everyone else be their own leader too. That's the aim here. So thank you, gentlemen, for this beautiful conversation and for allowing me to join it.
And how can everybody find out about you and join your channels and stuff? And I would strongly suggest that when I see a new video inspired by Jean and his amazing wife and team, that's the first click. Boom. So how can we find out where to maybe get the country music and also follow you on different platforms?
Well, thank you for asking, Jim. So if you want, we basically post new videos every day. We're on YouTube. If you go to Inspired, if you just type in that word in your YouTube search window, we should be the first channel that pops up. And then, just check it out. If it speaks to you, please do subscribe. We're also on Rumble and on Locals, and I'll happily share the links. And my music is, Jean Nolan. That's just my name. And if you find that on YouTube or any other platform, please do subscribe or follow, whatever, so we can stay in touch. This is really important to me. And new music is coming out too. I don't know. Currently, I'm starting to think we're somehow secretly inserting more hours into the day. We're getting a lot of stuff done, but I don't know how right now because there's so much going on. But I think when we're inspired, we can stretch time too.
Yes. Thank you, brother. It's so beautiful to chat with you and get to know you. And thank you for everything that you and Christine do.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jean. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We had a wonderful episode, great conversation, and we look forward to seeing you again here real soon. Have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning into the show. You can check out more episodes on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and your favorite podcast apps. Check out our show notes for any websites linked to this episode, including where to connect with us on social media.
We appreciate you dropping by today. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you'll be updated with each episode.
And visit us at thejimgaleshow.com to check out all of our exclusive content. We appreciate you dropping by.